Now, what's been described as the highest valued Asian artwork ever appearing at auction goes under the hammer about now in Hong Kong. It's a Xu Beihong painting called Slave and Lion, expected to fetch up to $58 million. Well, what's so special about the work? Joining me live now is Dr. Chia-Ling Yang, Senior Lecturer, History of Art at the University of Edinburgh. Thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. So first of all, why so much? Because it's a huge amount of money.
Yes, this painting actually was sold in 2006 at that time for around 53 or 54 million Hong Kong dollars, already broke the record. And then in 2011, his other painting was sold for 323.6 million Hong Kong dollars, another, record price for the Chinese painting. But then this one is expected to be one of the most expensive paintings for the Chinese oil painting, not just because of its aesthetic value, it's because it was painted in 1924, and when Xu Beihong was still a student in Paris, and then he traveled to Berlin in 1924 and studied in the Berlin Zoo for 3 months to study the lion. And so this was very rare survival of his early work, and especially that, a lot of works has been destroyed in the war, in the Second World War, and also in the Cultural Revolution, that make this painting quite distinct.
So is that specifically what gives it that kind of price tag and why it makes it so special, because it's so rare?
Yes, and the subject matter, of course, that it's a slave and lion, and then actually taken from the Roman mythology and Aesop's the fables. And then, of course, it has a lot of, the moral teaching of the compassion and humanity in terms of subject matter. But then in terms of aesthetic value, and because it's rare, and also it's one of the biggest painting by Xu Beihong in the private hand so far. And also it has a very standard collecting history, because Xu Beihong brought this to Singapore during the wartime period in the 1930s, and to collect the funds to support the Chinese army in the Second World War. That's why it was sold to the Singaporean collector, and it stayed in Singapore to, and then kept very well until 2006. It was sold in Hong Kong.
What I think is extraordinary here is, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and yet it's retained its value.
Yes, I think the art market price is really high, because I have been following today's the auction. Because this painting is still we are not yet. It's not sold yet. It's a lot 41, and now this is only a lot 39. But earlier, like Changyu and Liu Ye, they all fetch a very high price. And apparently, in the pandemic, that the market still retained its high interest, especially in the modern contemporary Chinese art.
Chia-Ling Yang, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme.